Alrighty, here we are moving on into section 6, and we're going to continue our work with square roots. And after one day of working with perfect squares and using the calculators, today I'm ripping them out of your hands. No calculators today. This is the only way I think I can get you to purposefully start memorizing these perfect squares and lock them up into your head. Okay? Whew, here we go. Are you ready? All right, so I have this heading at the top here, and our learning target for today for estimating square roots should look like this, okay? I can, okay, estimate the value of a square root. And then the important part, it's not quite done yet. I'm going to use this symbol, W/O, which is shorthand for saying without, all right? So you can estimate the value of a square root without a calculator, all right? Well, how in tarnation are we going to do this? Well, what I'm going to have you do is we're going a little old school here, and we are going to make a handmade square foot ruler. Seriously, okay? So what you need to do is get a piece of paper and turn it long way, landscape way. So if you have a piece of paper that looks like this, I need you to turn it this way. Okay. Now in class, I probably cut you a strip and made it skinnier. And if you want to do that and make it skinnier, go right ahead. But you can make this like the 11-inch way, like this. All right. Then you can either fold it, or what we can do is just draw the lines in. So you decide how you want to do that. But I'm going to have you fold it, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So what I want you to do is exactly halfway in the middle is either make a fold or draw a tiny little hash mark up at the top like this, okay? Because that's going to be the center. Now your goal here is then try to estimate thirds for each half here. So try to split it up into 3 equal chunks for each half like this and put a little hash mark there. And then the same thing here is divvy up this section into 3 equal parts. And then divide each of these little ones in half. Okay, so you get what looks like this. Now I'm going to clean mine up and get rid of these little swoopy things underneath. But basically what you should end up with is all these little hash marks on the one side of your makeshift ruler. Okay. Next, I want you to number on here. And if you did it exactly as I have it laid out here, you will get to the number 11. Now, here's the deal. Every single one of these whole numbers represents the square root of a perfect square. So, for example, the number 1 happens to be the square root of 1. The integer 2, the whole number 2, is exactly the square root of 4. 4 is a perfect square. 3 is the same as the square root of 9. 9 is a perfect square. 3 times 3 is 9, so the square root of 9 is 3. 4 times 4 is 16, so the square root of 16 is exactly 4. And so on. 5 squared is 25, so the square root of 25 is 5. Continue on and build this side of your ruler. And if you need to pause the video, go ahead. Whoopsie daisy, 64. 81, 100, 121. Okay, pause if you need to. Then what I want you to do is turn it over and do the same exact thing, making your little ruler tick marks here, just like you did on the front side. So if you have fold marks, it's kind of nice because it falls right in there. And continue on with your numbering, starting on the back side with 12. Now, you'll actually go all the way to 22. Even though I didn't have you memorize these, we're going to build our ruler to include these so we can extend a little bit beyond there. Okie dokie. All right, 12 times 12 is 144. Therefore, the square root of 144 is exactly 12. Go ahead and fill out the rest of these. When you get to the number 21, just hold your horses and I'll meet you there. Have you got these memorized yet? Hot diggity dog, I hope so. All right. Yesterday, this is what I told you to memorize, all of these perfect squares. So now, when you get to 21, take the square root of 441. That's what 21 squared is. 22 squared is 484. Therefore, the square root of 484 is 22. Exactly. All right. Whew. Now, the reason we have all this, and I don't want you touching that calculator because I need you to use this and this handy dandy fancy tool you've just created. We can take square roots of any number. It's just that only these numbers work out to be exactly perfect. Okay, so now let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Square root of 55. All right, the square root of 55, there's a number that this actually represents. What I need you to start fitting in your head and thinking about is about how much is this? So the first thing we're going to do is say, what are the two integers that this lies between? And this is why I need you to grab your square root ruler. That's hard to say. And what I want you to do is look at the square root row. Now I sound like Scooby-Doo. Row. Look at your root row and see where the square root of 55 lies. As I'm zooming along, I see, hey, the square root of 49 is exactly 7. And then the square root of 64 is exactly 8. The square root of 55 is in between these two. Therefore, this number is going to be something between 7 and 8. Yes. Okay, let's try another one. What if I said, what is the square root of 95? Okay, go along. Look along in the root row that you have on your ruler. Well, that's a whole lot of R's. Your root row ruler, or your root row on the ruler. All right, here's what I find. Gosh, really close to the square root of 100, which is exactly 10. Below the perfect square that's on the lower side of this is the square root of 81, which is exactly 9. That means the square root of 95 is somewhere between 9 and 10. In fact, it'll be 9 point something something. Okay, and that's what we'll look for in a minute. I want to take one little other thing that's going to occur today. What if I put a negative sign out front? Don't let that freak you out. This simply means I want the negative value of the square root of 95. Or it's kind of like saying -1 times the square root of 95. Now, I just told you, or we just went through this and said, hey, the square root of 95 is between these two perfect square roots, so it's between 9 and 10. So when there's a negative sign in front, I just want you to think of the same thing. This is between the square root of negative square root of 81 and the negative square root of 100, which is -9 and -10. Okay, now I know that's kittywampus or backwards than your number line is, but you get the idea. Okay? Okay. So that's one skill you're going to do today. Look at a square root and figure out where does it fit on your number line and specifically between what two integers. Okay. Then what we're going to have you do is say, okay, now don't just figure out what two numbers does it lie between, but specifically, can you estimate approximately how much it is? Okay. So write this one down. Square root of 80. Okay. And if I asked you, estimate what this is to the 10th place. Okay, so before, here's what we were doing. We were saying, well, let's see. Oh, super close to the square root of 81, which is exactly 9. My perfect square below this is the square root of 64, which is 8. Okay, this is 8, this is 9, this is in between. So I know that this, the square root of 80, is going to be approximately equal to 8 point something. I want you to just look at this and say, what would it be closer to? Okay, or can I kind of get an estimate? So let's take a look here. How close are 64 and 80, the numbers? 64 and 80, 64 and 80. Subtract them. They're 16 numbers apart. 80 and 81, they're really close. They're only one number apart, which means this number is, if I was thinking of this on a number line, like this and like this guy is way up here, really, really close to 9. So here's where like 8.5 would be, or 8.5. This guy is way, 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 way up here. If I'm going to estimate, I'm going to say, dude, that's probably like 8.9. I got to be so close to 9. I'm just tippy toe right close, but not there. That would be a good estimate. If you told me 8.5, no, that's not very good. 8.5 would be about halfway in between 64 and 81. And these two numbers are about 17 apart. So this would be somewhere like, the square root of 72 would be somewhere in the middle, not this. Okay, way up here, not in the middle and not down here. Okay, let's try another one. What if I said, will you find the square root of... It's taking me a minute because I'm making these up, so just be patient. 20. The square root of 20. Okay, now I want you to estimate this to the 10th place. Okay, estimate to the 10th. Okay, take a look at your ruler and your root row, and let's see what's going on here. Okay, on my ruler, as I take a look at things, I say, well, 4 is exactly the square root of 16. 5 is exactly the square root of 25. And sure enough, the square root of 20 is in between these two. Now, if you had to figure out approximately where does this fall, okay, 20 is about 4 away from 20, or from 16, and it's only about 5 away from 25. So it's pretty close to the middle. Okay, might be just a tad closer to the 16, but it's really close to the middle is where the square root of 20 is. So if you had to estimate where that is, I would say, gosh, it's probably really close to 4.5. Or if you wanted to guess, maybe just a little shy of that because it's really closer to the 16, maybe around 4.4. Either of those are good estimates when we're just using the good old brain power, right? In the days ahead, we'll get your calculator and talk about, all right, whereabouts is it? But you need to have a picture in your head as to what this value is, okay? All right, now let's move on to this guy. Don't freak out because you see words. Just stop it, okay? You want to sew a fringe on a square tablecloth with an area of 300 square inches. Okay, hold your horses here. Here's my square tablecloth, and I want my tablecloth to be groovy, so therefore I'm going to put fringe on here, okay? Now, the only information I have for some bizarre reason is the area, and I know my area is 300 square inches. So I got to figure out, first of all, what's one side, okay? And since this is a square, one side is equal to the square root of 300. Okay, so first things first, look at your root ruler. When I look at my root ruler, That's going to crack me up all day. Here's what's happening, okay? As I look at it, I'm saying, all right, 300 in the square root row is between the square root of 289, okay? Because that was exactly at 17. And then here comes the next perfect square is the square root of 324, which was exactly the number 18. Okay, where does 300 fit? Okay, and if I say like here's smack dab in the middle, okay, where is 300? So look at your root row. 300 to 289, that's about 11 apart. And then 300 to 324 is 24 apart. So clearly I'm on the closer side to 17, somewhere in this land, probably, I'm guessing, somewhere around here, the square root of 300. So you're not at 17 and a half yet. Nope. Okay. But I'm probably, I don't know, in the realm of maybe 17.3 or 17.2, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay. You choose one of these numbers. Okay, so if I say, all right, let's say I'll say 17.3 maybe. Okay, that would be one side, which means all of your sides get the fancy funky fringe. So I've got to have approximately 4 times that 17.3. So go ahead now and figure out how much fringe approximately we're going to need. Either add them up 4 times or multiply. That sound right? 68, 69 and 2/10. Okay. Inches. That's how much fringe I need, approximately. Awesome. So this is what I want